The young Belarusian journalist taken off yesterday's Ryanair flight now faces capital charges. And that has implications for the entire political opposition, as the man called Europe's last dictator breaches the norms of international air travel in his quest to crush dissent. For the candidate who believes she was the real winner of last year's rigged presidential election, there's a sense that she could easily have fallen victim to the same tactic.
I flew back to Vilnius with the same flight a week ago, and I don't know that they could make such mistake, but I really could be at Roman's place if they would arrange the same forced landing or flight. So now nobody feels safe, no in Belarus, no abroad, I mean from Belarusian people, and the same as people from other countries who accidentally may be at the same flight.
With an EU summit already in the diary, leaders have their chance to formulate a response this evening, with at least one of their former number telling us they can't afford not to act, even if that forces Belarus President Lukashenko closer to Russia.
When it comes to heavy sanctions, one of the arguments against has been that it risks driving him further into the arms of Mr. Putin. That's a valid concern, but I think we are now in a situation where the downside of what could be done is less than the downside of not doing anything, because he's simply gone too far. And he will have to sort out his sort of effort to be independent of Moscow himself if he wants to do that still. So I think there's a consensus emerging for fairly robust action.
The UK government got in first with its response today, banning overflights of Belarus and severing air links with this country.
The scenario, as reported, is a shocking assault on civil aviation and an assault on international law. It represents a danger to civilian flights everywhere.
EU leaders dining tonight in Brussels adopted a similar package, but that's unlikely to free Roman Protasevich or, of course, topple the regime he and the wider opposition consider illegitimate.
We can't look at this situation with airplanes separately from the situation in Belarus, because this is the escalation of repression, and how far regime is ready to go to kidnap people is the question. And after this, meeting, we suppose that broader sanctions, fast sanctions, will be imposed on those who are responsible for violence in Belarus.
With further sanctions planned and many governments branding Belarus an outlaw or pariah state, Europe may be witnessing the emergence of its own North Korea, with disruption of trading links and normal relations becoming a long-term fact of life, as an opposition driven underground struggles to be heard.
We can't change a regime in North Korea, and Belarus will take its time. But it's a dictatorship that I think is unsustainable. Then, of course, Moscow will try to, without necessarily be very happy with Lukashenko, will try to keep it floating as much as they can, because they're afraid of the geopolitical consequences. But we will have to take it as it is. It is a frozen dictatorship, and which is acting as a bandit. We must act accordingly.
Belarusian TV tonight showed an interview with Roman Protasevich in detention. The BBC has decided not to show it as he's under duress. The measures adopted today by the West are, in all likelihood, too late to save him from going to trial.
Well, that was Mark Urban, and joining us now, Latvia's President, Egils Levits. A little later, we'll speak to the UN Special Rapporteur on Belarus, Anais Marin, and the Conservative member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Bob Seeley. But President Levits, if I can start with you, were you surprised by what you saw happen yesterday?
We are surprised from the behavior of Belarusian government, of the dictator Lukashenko, because the security of global air traffic is a global system, and till now, no one country, dictatorship or not, has forced to land civil aircraft. And I think this is a very, very heavy interference in international law. And I would say Belarus has behaved as an outlaw and should be treated as an outlaw in this respect.
Yeah,
I think there is a response of United Kingdom and European Union and other countries is just, is proportionate, and we should stay to our position that such a behavior, the hijacking of a civilian aircraft and the kidnapping of a person, it is not acceptable for international community.
You sound quite calm, but you've just heard Belarus being called bandit country. I wonder how Latvia feels tonight. You are sandwiched between Russia and Belarus, which I'm imagining is quite a scary place to be.
We are members of NATO and European Union, and we would show, and we are showing solidarity with the people of Belarus, of the opposition of Belarus, who wants to have free presidential elections. And the current president, I would say, stole the elections in the August last year. And it is absolutely justified demand of the opposition to have free elections. And European Union, Latvia, all democratic states are supporting the opposition in this demand.
Let me ask you, because you know what it's like to fight for the independence for your country. You did it for Latvia. What would be your advice to Belarusian dissidents, to voices of opposition there tonight?
I would say, first of all, it was for Latvian democratic movement very, very important the political support of the Western societies, of democratic societies, that we are not alone. We was not alone then, 30 years ago. And I think that it is the same for the democratic opposition of Belarus, that we are showing solidarity with them, political solidarity, first of all, and to give them the feeling that they are not alone and that they are fighting for a just political order.
You have talked of solidarity. You've expelled Belarusian diplomats tonight. What does that look like in practical terms? What do you think Belarus needs to see now from the EU, from the US, from the UK in terms of the strength of sanction?
Yeah, there are some measures decided already by the European Council. First of all, I would say that European Union will ban the flights from Belarus, from state airplane company to land in European Union. And also, it is there would be measures in order to avoid that European aircraft companies will overfly Belarus territory, because the behavior of Belarus shows that the airspace over Belarus is not safe.
Okay.
It's not safe for the international traffic.
Let me
and
pick
I
up
think
with,
this is the right reaction to that.
Let me pick up, if I can, with Anais Marin. The UK Foreign Secretary said this is a serious violation of international law. What more does the UN need to do, Anais?
Yes. It is.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to the UN now, if I can.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight. Let me just say that I'm an independent expert appointed by the Human Rights Council, so whatever I say does not amount to an official statement from the UN. I'm happy to share with you the news that the Secretary General has, through his spokesman, expressed support or calls for a full, transparent and independent investigation into this disturbing incident. And I join my voice to his to urge all relevant actors to cooperate.
Do you need Belarus to cooperate with that, presumably? They haven't shown any engagement with the UN before, have they?
They have shown engagement with several treaty bodies, with the Universal Periodic Review, etc. With my own mandate, however, which has existed since 2012, I must admit that it has never been recognized, and unfortunately I'm very used to being in a situation where the authorities do not cooperate with me and do not share any kind of information. Therefore, I have to base my own conclusions about the situation of human rights in Belarus on official statements and all what the civil society, human rights defenders communicate to me, and based on this make an impartial assessment. That is why now with this hot potato, situation that we have been having for the past 30 hours, I'm not in a position to comment on the possible.
Well, let me bring in Bob Seeley then. Can you do diplomacy with a country that hijacks planes?
I think it's very difficult. What I would say is that Belarus is effectively a security colony of Russia. So you can't see Lukashenko and Putin as being different. And it's delusional that you could somehow wheel off Lukashenko from Putin. He's Soviet, Putin's Soviet, they're both Soviet. He's the embarrassing uncle, but basically they're Soviet family. And you have to treat them together as a problem, because Lukashenko is all about Putin's sphere of interest. And Lukashenko and Minsk is the new front line against Putin's battle against the West, and color revolutions, these democratic upheavals on the streets, which Putin and his security elite, as an article of faith, believe is a Western form of warfare to hurt and destroy Mother Russia. And that is effectively behind all this.
So how far would you go to get involved in the, let's say, free and fair elections of another country? I mean, do you think the UK should be backing the Belarus opposition? Is it right for Britain to be involved there?
Okay, that's a really good question, because the problem is clearly, because Putin has been so aggressive, especially over Ukraine, we have treaded incredibly carefully, and it seems like we have given the Belarusian democratic forces very, very little support, because to do so will play into Putin's arms, and Putin will then turn around and say, there, I told you, the West is backing these fascists. These are just like the Kiev puppets of the USA, etc. If we are serious about action and not just endlessly virtue signaling, there are a number of things that we can do, of which actively supporting the opposition is one, but there are many others as well, including stuff that we can do more in Ukraine. But there's also many things that we can do domestically. We can get our domestic house in order, because whilst we talk tough on Russia, we still allow Russian oligarchs to use blue chip law firms, to use tax havens, to use the money markets here as well. And if we're serious about confronting Russia, we would be doing more now, getting our house in order and understanding that these criminal regimes, a lot of the stuff that we can do to defend ourselves is about domestic law here.
OK, so really Belarus and Russia are synonymous for you. Let me ask you, Anais Marin, just to end, because this all focuses on one very young man, Roman Protasevich. Do you think he will ever get out of Minsk alive and well?
Well, this is what we are all hoping for, and why we are striving to, whatever we do is, of course, to try and get him out. But I would remind that if we consider him a journalist, he is only 1 out of 30 currently journalists being behind bars in Belarus. There are over 400 people who are considered by human rights defenders as political prisoners, and the situation is not new. I'm sort of cynically enough, I am happy that this event brings back attention worldwide on the situation with human rights in Belarus, which has been absolutely terrible for the past 26 years, and over the past year, it's been getting from bad to worse.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thanks for joining us on Newsnight tonight.